to come to the last panel right here. There's a lot that we're going to be talking about today. As the previous speakers have mentioned, we've addressed quite a few issues as we're looking at the recovery efforts, whether it's digital divide, whether it's workforce development. And now we're looking into our next panel, which is the enterprise solution, looking specifically at a business-friendly reopening. Bill Allen earlier gave us a lot of great information and data specifically about our pathways for economic resiliency reports that LAEDC conducted on behalf of LA County. And there are a lot of impactful information that's there looking at how COVID-19 has really shaped and influenced and exacerbated some of the major issues that we have in LA County. Another aspect of this report is to look at the impact it had on our businesses. As we can imagine, the impact is not the same for the tech community when it comes to the employees that were there versus what happened with the hospitality sector. And when we're looking at Los Angeles, one of the report's finding is that over 93% of LA County businesses are actually have less than 20 employees. And in fact, about 87% of all LA County businesses have less than 9 employees, really small companies that are located here. And these companies have suffered quite a lot, and they were dependent on various programs that are available, including, for example, the PPP program that everybody was going after immediately. But what we also found with some of the data that we looked at nationally is that if these employees or employers and these businesses are applying for PPP loans, the way that it was distributed and the way that they're able to receive the support was not distributed equitably. If a company, a small company, are applying for a PPP, usually if they're Black majority owned, it takes about 31 days for that approval process to happen, compared to 24 days for a majority white owned company. And for Latino and Hispanic population, it's about 30 days. And then for Asian Americans, it's about 29 days. So you see that there's a longer wait time for our communities of colors and also our entrepreneurs of color. At the same time, we also looked at the savings and the cash flow that they have available. Most of these small companies have less than 2 months. In fact, most of them have about less than 1 month. Over 29.5% of them have less than 1 month in savings. So this is actually having a significant impact in Los Angeles. And that's why, according to the report as well, we saw in just the first few months, Los Angeles had more temporary and permanent closure compared to other cities like New York and San Francisco. And it's devastating our community. And as we're moving forward, we're looking, how do we recover? How do we help these businesses open in a business-friendly manner? And I'm delighted that we're able to bring in some experts to be able to help us really think through these issues. Joining us will be Rafael Carbajal, the director for the Los Angeles County Department of Consumer Affairs, Consumer and Business Affairs, Tanua Thrashentuk, the executive director for the Los Angeles Local Initiative Support Corporation, also known as LISC LA, and Lemaire Walker, co-founder and chief design officer for Valence Community. These 3 individuals will be able to give us some insights and have some specific questions. They have very extensive background, and their bios are going to be too long for me to read. So I encourage you to do some Google research to look at their impressive background. But because we only have about 45 minutes to really get into some of these really key issues, I want to go directly right into those questions. And I'm going to start with Rafael. Rafael, you know, with the DCBA, you guys have done quite a lot over the last year. Immediately, as soon as you saw COVID hitting our communities and especially our businesses throughout Los Angeles County, you created a lot of great programs. Right now, I think LA County, you know, as we're listening to some of the other speakers before, it's about that collaboration. It's about sharing the resources, so we're not duplicating some of the resources that are available. Can you talk a little bit about right now, what resources can DCBA offer the other cities? And also, as we're looking at the stimulus package coming down the line to Los Angeles, what can the cities expect to be able to partner with you on and with the county on? Rafael?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Stephen, for hosting this event and inviting us to be part of it. You know, many of my counterparts have touched on this, but we learned that through the pandemic, again, that we can't do this alone. The need is great. A lot of the work that most of us undertook was a reaction to this emergency. And one thing that we did learn through this emergency is that being reactive is not enough. And a lot of us try to operate in silos and try to address some of these issues on our own. So look forward to, in the future, continuing to work with our partners such as Tanua, who is a great partner with us and the city of LA in rolling out our COVID-19 recovery fund. But currently, that recovery fund continues. We have a round of funding open right now for small retail shops called Keep Our Shops on the Block. Tanua and her team are helping us roll that out. So that's currently available. And one key thing about that is that we can't do this alone. We don't have, like most of our municipal partners, we don't have all the resources to connect and reach out to folks. So one of the best things that you could do is connect with us and offer us spaces where you bring in your business owners, your community members, and you make us available to them to share this information, because you have the inroads and the better communication and the better connection to them. So that's a very important thing. One of the things that we've also realized, and it's an effort that we have been working on for several years, going back to 2016, is leveraging the county's buying power to connect small businesses to opportunities for government contracting, including the county as a contractor. Our goal was to reach $2 million per year to certified businesses. We were well underway, but like many of us, COVID had different plans for us. And then that did stop us from achieving that goal in 2020. But one thing that we did learn is that we could easily get there when we put our mind to it. Over the 4 years of directly investing in this partnership, we saw 125% year-over-year growth in connecting small businesses to these opportunities. But also within our department, we have the Office of Small Business, which houses the Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which is the only federally funded PTAC in the region. The goal of the PTAC is to connect small businesses to government contracting. That's contracting with the county, other municipalities, federal, state, and even some of our private partners. An opportunity there for us is, again, we can't reach everybody, but partnering with our municipal partners, you could open up those spaces for us to connect with them. In many instances, a contract with a municipality, a small contract with the municipality, could be that springboard into a contract with the county, a smaller contract with the county, to a bigger contract with the county, and potentially a bigger contract with some federal partners, even some private partners. So the reality is, as even though we are a county department and the county is vast and huge, we don't have the same reach that our municipal partners do. So we would love to invest a greater deal of time and investment in partnering with our municipalities to directly connect with them and their constituents with our services.
Great. Thank you so much, Rafael. And the county, since the beginning of COVID, has been very supportive and worked very closely with nonprofit organizations like LAEDC and created a number of different programs. Otto earlier mentioned the Safe at Work initiative that we're trying to advertise and keep pushing out so we can get back to work safely. But there are other programs like PPE Unites that is already listed in the chat as a resource. Our community connectory and our business technical assistance that's been working very closely with all our partners are so important. And with that said, there's so many other partnership opportunities with nonprofits like LISC LA. And LISC has been pivotal in making sure that the resources are being distributed equitably to some of our communities that are hardest hit. And Tanua, I want to bring this question to you. I know that as you are delivering some of these vital resources to the communities and to our businesses, there are 3 Ps that you really want us to focus on, especially for the cities to understand the importance of these 3 Ps. If you can share these 3 Ps with our cities and our partners, that would be fantastic. I think that you can learn quite a lot from it. Tanua?
Thanks, Stephen, and to my colleagues, Rafael and Lemaire. Great to be on this panel with you today. Stephen, I was a little nervous. You were about to take my thunder regarding those 3 Ps. 2020 brought us an unprecedented opportunity to do some pretty interesting things that we never thought would be possible in terms of supporting community in the way that we did. And I was saying, as we were preparing for this presentation, that PPP was on everybody's lips last year. How do we, make sure that there's a paycheck protection program for small businesses? How do we make sure there's a paycheck protection program for individuals? Too many families and individuals lost their employment and their livelihood. And I said, and as cities looking forward to an equitable economic recovery, we can continue in the vein of the PPP. And here's what I meant by that. So really, the first P is about place. So many of the neighborhoods that were hardest hit were already too hard hit by the current economic structure and not having the kind of economic vitality that we know neighborhood commercial corridors need. And so we want to encourage cities to really look at what are those commercial corridors and places within your community who really need that additional and extra push. How do we make sure that those particular places have the grant dollars to open up storefronts and to help pay rent and to create the kind of enthusiasm for business and to attract business to those commercial corridors? So the first P was place. The second, as jurisdictions, and Raphael has mentioned it at the county level, cities spend millions and billions of dollars every day. And to the extent that cities can begin to think about where to direct those dollars to diverse entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, veteran-owned entrepreneurs, really setting some goals in making sure that those dollars are spent and are able to reach those kinds of communities and those businesses. So that's the second P. This is a great opportunity to diversify your supply chain so that it's local and so that it doesn't have the kind of disruption that we saw in 2020. And then the final P is all about portal. And this concept that businesses today, no matter where they are, it used to be you could rely on foot traffic. So if you were in the right, space in the right commercial corridor, you would have customers no matter what. But we know, given that people have had to stay safer at home, have had to stay safer at work, we have to help our businesses connect to the internet, get on the line, be visible in that way, and conduct e-commerce in that way. And there are resources at the city level that can help to create and build out, even if it's a local portal, just for businesses within that region to get connected. So that third P is portal. I heard somebody ask that again, and that's really all about helping businesses connect in a meaningful way and really know how to not only get online, be visible online, but conduct commerce online as well. So Stephen, those are just some of my thoughts about an initial sort of what can cities be doing for an equitable economic recovery.
Thank you, Danielle. We'll dive into a bit deeper, but I'm glad you brought up the three Ps. And again, so for those who are jotting down this place-based, procurement, and portal. And this portal issue brings back to the first panel's discussion about digital divide, right? Because, we can talk about e-commerce, but the thing is, if you don't have equitable, reliable, and affordable digital access, then basically we're actually pushing some of these communities member even towards unemployment yet again. With that, I want to bring this next question to Lemaire. Lemaire, you wear multiple hats, so I'm going to ask you a different type of question. One is your work with Valence community. The other is more about your innovative and your tech background. So the first one first, this goes back to Tanua's discussion about place space. With Valence community, your focus in your work is about providing access, and basically about promoting opportunities to especially Black entrepreneurs that have not been given the opportunity and the chance. And as we're talking about it throughout this entire summit, we've seen that the distribution of the resources are not equitable. Now that we're looking at recovery, and we cannot go back to, as Bill Allen mentioned at the very beginning, we cannot go back to what was seen as normal, because it wasn't normal. It wasn't great for everybody. It wasn't working for everybody. What is your recommendation, and based on your work with, especially with the VC community, how do they partner with the cities to ensure there is that equitable and inclusive recovery? I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you very much. Stephen, Tanua, very nice to meet you and to hear your three Ps. The third one in particular excites me beyond belief. And Raphael, it's great to meet you as well. So Stephen, I think for me, the learnings over the last couple of years have been pretty tremendous in terms of taking the learnings that I've had from working in the innovation economy at large with large enterprises and then scaling down to actually design businesses primarily through the financial services sector for small and communal-based endeavors. It really kind of opened my eyes up to when working with the VCs, how the sense of place and the sense of pride around creating communities of strength and communities of kind of connectivity that, the portal into Tanua's three Ps is so critical of how do you actually build those out so that they're really active and they're alive. And so I would say, some of the learnings with, here in LA and other cities like Atlanta, Chicago, Seattle even, the engagement has been very tremendous over this last 9 months post George Floyd, honestly, seeing how that was a trigger for a lot of folks to step in and say, hey, look, we want to be a part of solutions in a real way. And so on our side, we formed the Valence Funding Network, which was effectively a community for those VCs that were outside of our network here in LA with Upfront to actually have a place to engage and to be open, to kind of have their doorways primed and curated, of course, but also open in a larger way than they have been before for entrepreneurs to kind of get that chance at pitching. We're also kind of seeing on the large enterprise side where there's innovation happening and a desire to have presence from the Black community. There's huge opportunity within these companies to come in and create and to blend and to cross the ERGs and other groups that are within these large companies like Amazon and so forth that we're working with. And so I would say, the notion of the portal is the most important critical component that we've had with the VCs, of them having a unified space to go and plug into. And then they've often had their own initiatives. I mean, honestly, Valence is a Upfront portal that was designed to service them. And as it's grown to incorporate others, it's been pretty tremendous. So I'm quite excited, about where we're headed next in terms of how this ecosystem, particularly here in LA, is going to be a hub in so many ways for what the nation and the world kind of grows into in this next phase.
Thank you, Omer. And as you're mentioning that, I was thinking back in some of the discussion points that our previous panels have addressed, and some of the data that both Bill and Jessica actually mentioned before. And I want to add to that a little bit because we're seeing these compounding and confounding issues when it comes to the data that we're seeing. So for example, we were talking about how the pandemic has exacerbated a lot of the racial and gender inequities that are already within our system. And it just basically revealed it and exacerbated it in a very quick manner. And at the same time, we did some GIS analysis and saw that, the concentration of the layoffs and the closures were surrounded around communities of color and low LMI communities as well. As we're looking at the play space, one of the Ps that Tanua you're talking about, wanted to basically ask all three panelists, just now it's open discussion, and whenever you guys have a thought, please share it with us. What is the best approach in terms of helping, especially the small businesses that we're talking about from a city's perspective? What can they do to basically really focus their resources and to be able to help these communities that are hardest hit? What are some of the programs that you saw were successful? What didn't work? How should we address this?
Happy to start. So certainly, it's going to be some level of resources. And like with the county's program, you'll notice, and Raphael, you can go into detail about this, it is about keeping our shops on the block. If we're going to invest in place, then we have to be serious about investing in place and identifying those businesses that are in community, serving our local communities and making them thrive economically. The other elements we also want to think about, and really what we saw during this pandemic crisis all last year, is that those commercial corridors that had a really strong organization, a bid, a business association, an individual who had the financial wherewithal and resources, so something that the city could undergird by investing in an organization, but those commercial corridors that had that kind of structure were able to really help businesses with what they needed. And what they needed was access to customers, right? And one of the ways that they did that is they helped to create those databases of people who were proximate and those who were interested in the type of businesses that were in that commercial corridor. So database, access to customers. Some of these businesses right now are looking at what is my pivot point, given the type of business I am, what do people need right now? And cities can help businesses, get some of those best practices in. If you're a dry cleaners, what do you need to be doing now to respond to the moment now in this current circumstance? And helping to pull together some of those best practices so that businesses can see, okay, I should become, I should have, coffee or certain other things coupled with my business in order to be able to meet what the need is right now. And then, so, investing in an organization that is helping those business attract customers, helping those businesses figure out what their pivot point is. And then the other element I would say is, it's really right now, we've got to, recruit in place. Many of the places that we see that we work in are areas that were without commercial corridor storefronts. But now is the time to start recruiting. There are folks who've hatched up some fantastic ideas, and we need them to come out and get into space and, be a little more public so that as we open up, people have a destination to attend to. And so part of what that organization would be all about and what the city could help fund is really creating that destination experience in those places.
Yeah, and building on Tanua's 3Ps, and I know Tanua wouldn't let me down with the with her insights, having had the opportunity to work with her during the pandemic. I think one of the things too, and when we think about place, and when we think about municipalities, each municipality has their own business licensing, their own requirements, their own opportunities, their own challenges. Knowing those and recognizing those, and then connecting with us. For example, our Office of Small Business has a small business concierge. Our expertise is navigating the complexities of opening a business or maintaining a business within LA County. So pairing the two knowledge bases to support their community is one key element. And another thing too is we need to be real. The folks really impacted by the pandemic were women of color, right? And what can we do, and how are our systems failing, our opportunities to support women of color entrepreneurs, looking internally, looking at our gaps, looking at our opportunities, recognizing those, and then connecting with all the other partners to ensure that whatever investments we make in the future directly address and leverage each other to support some of that. The county, through the American Rescue Plan, will be receiving a significant amount of money to invest in our communities and to borrow from the current administration, hopefully build back better, but beyond that, build back equitably. So how do we do, how does the county fit into what each municipality who was also receiving some resources? How do we leverage each other to make sure that we make a significant impact supporting these communities that need it the most? In particular, entrepreneurs. The reason we were able to survive the pandemic was because of their entrepreneurial spirit of LA County. It was folks taking their existing business and reinventing it or shifting in another direction. And I don't want to say pivot, because we for a year and a half, we've been saying pivot, but it's reimagining, reinventing to maintain resiliency. So how do we make sure that our investments collectively really focus on that? And I really look forward to working with our municipal partners and ensuring that whatever investments we make complement or build on or stack on whatever investments they decide to venture into.
Yeah, and I would kind of extend the points that Raphael and Tanua just gave us there around the topic of how things are being digitized in terms of the e-commerce components and all the infrastructure that's needed. One of our partner firms did some really great work during the late summer last year around, was it kind of a stretch to say that things like the supply chain and some of the infrastructure around what was happening now that the teams were all remote, that a lot of these businesses were kind of pausing effectively because they couldn't see a solution around that. As they're looking at, what would happen post crisis, so to speak, a lot of conversation around, well, I need visibility and I need to kind of have people within this neighborhood know what I'm about. And so if there's anything I think we could see in terms of the portal aspect of what we've been talking about, each of the cities could potentially consider either working with LAEDC and or, different partners on how to upgrade the data and the information and its searchability around the businesses as they are now and as they're evolving, because the clarity around what these businesses are capable of, and particularly around the supply chain support that they need and the capacity mapping for that to happen, I think that should definitely be something that's prioritized around how these businesses go forward. And lastly, as much of the mapping that can be put in the hands of the actual business owners and the residents of the neighborhood, the better. We found a lot of times that a lot of blind spots were because the evolving nature of businesses moving and or virtualizing just makes it really difficult. So I think finding ways when you actually onboard people into those portals that they're actually able to really drive that and carry it forward.
Let's stick with that for a little bit longer. I'm fascinated by you start mentioning about the portal aspect, and that a lot of companies during this COVID-19 crisis immediately switched over to online operation if they can. Some aren't. But now, as we're moving forward, that's going to continue to be the case. We need to basically build up this digital platform for people to be able to access online procurement opportunities. That it needs to be even more tied in with each other. In our Digital Divide panel, they're talking about infrastructure development projects, how rail lines and various data needs to be tied in together. From for example, the South Bay COG was mentioning, it needs to be all integrated. Now, for me, all of a sudden, I start thinking about these are security issues, cybersecurity issues. And from a city perspective, there's going to be a lot of coordination that are there. Can I ask you to switch hats a little bit? I know you work a lot on kind of the blockchain system and various tech system. Can you give the city some examples in terms of things to think about as they're kind of planning the future, as we're talking about this new digital dependency that we're going to be having on all these technology that will be coming online soon?
Yeah, this last year, I have had quite a crash course in what it means to have access to personal identifying information. But part of what, I'm describing in terms of portal for cities is also really, I really wanted to lift up the City of LA's LA Optimize program, for example, and that being a way to help local entrepreneurs, learn how to get connected to the internet, figure out best practices around e-commerce. And we've got some programming right now where we're looking at engaging young people to really help with that process who are, already adept. I've got a teenage daughter at home to be able to, help small businesses get connected online. But as we do that, you're right, Stephen, we have to protect the data. And that in of itself is really part of that portal process and experience. Not only is it about, how do we connect to it, but how do we make sure that we keep that information safe? And so people will hear the term more and more now, PII. Before the pandemic, I can't really tell you I knew what that meant, but now I know it's personal identifying information, and we must protect it at all costs. And so helping small businesses understand that if they develop a database, that it might have PII information in it. How do you safeguard that? What are some of the tech tools that you use to do that? What are some of the processes that you use to do that? All of these kinds of things, that kind of education and information could be part of an optimized portal program that a city could make available so that local, smaller, organizations who might not be as familiar or have the resources to get into a course on, how to protect that information. There are ways of getting that information out to community. So that's something that I know we will have to contend with going forward. And there's all kinds of software out there to support that allows for the ability to make the information anonymous in a way that protects the public as well as those small businesses.
Lamer, any guidance? I know that again you work quite a lot on the blockchain side of things. Anything that you can share with the cities?
Yeah, absolutely. what's also fascinating about this period, even today is a landmark day in terms of Coinbase going public, on the financial side of what's happening with blockchain and open internet services. There's also several platforms, one of which that I work closely with, that are going to be launched and that provide a whole kind of new infrastructure, including the actual data centers themselves that are all next generation cryptographically driven. And so the notion of what is identity and how does that actually work within the ecosystems is getting a serious upgrade. And so a lot of the traditional Web 2.0 stack, we're going to see that really evolve very fast over this next year. And I think particularly you're seeing fragments of it right now with things like the conversation acronym, I hate to use it, but the NFT world that comprises a lot of the traits of what, I would say incontrovertible identity aspects that go on and give you rights and entitlements and so forth, and how you protect that. We're going to see huge innovation there. And I think that the cities have the literal kind of best case examples of how things like voting can work going forward based on these opportunities, and finding ways to innovate around that is going to be really a great opportunity set for many of you leaders in your positions to kind of, basically say you're open for the innovation economy to show up here in LA in a new way.
Thank you, Omar. Speaking of new industries and innovative, kind of sectors coming in, one of the things that we would like to see for this region, as we're looking at, Raphael, I'm going to borrow your phrase, the reimagining and reinventing of the economy, right, to build in the resiliency. So besides Tanua's 3 Ps, we're going to do the 3 Rs now. With that, the 3 R aspect, we need to start looking at how do we attract new ecosystems to come here, to choose Los Angeles as their base, so we can bring these living wage and better jobs, family sustaining jobs here, so that we're not reliant on some of the more vulnerable businesses. And one of the ways we're able to do so is to look at going back to another piece, the procurement. I want to spend a bit more time on that. As you mentioned, Raphael, the county has all these great opportunities that are available, and the various cities have that as well. And as we're looking in the future, we're going to be looking at the 2028 Olympic Games, where there'll be a great many opportunities that are there. But not only that, we'll also be hosting the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The Super Bowl will be coming in next year, the MLB All-Star Game, the MLS All-Star Game, the NCAA West Basketball Championship. I mean, we're going to be the sports entertainment capital of the United States over the next decade, which means that there are going to be a lot of procurement opportunities. Now, that's a good side. The bad side and the complex side is, for a lot of our businesses, they were offered a lot of assistance during COVID-19. There are cities that were giving out grants and loans. County was doing the same thing. Private sector were doing the same thing. And for small business, of 3-4 employees, it became very difficult for them to keep on tracking this and applying on different platforms. What is the way, from a county perspective or a city perspective, what would you recommend? How do we coordinate the system so these small businesses are not going to be overburdened with applying for all these opportunities, and they have all different forms? Is there a way to do so?
Oh, well, working with LISC is a good way to do it, right, Tanoa? No, but that's a really tough question, and it's kind of a loaded question. But the reality has to do about ensuring that we're communicating with each other so that we're all aware of what the opportunities are. In an ideal world, it'd be one portal, going back to the Ps, where they could access all of that information. We would love to believe that the county could really facilitate some of that and make sure that that's available. But a big piece is going to be the technical assistance, and Tanoa could speak to this too as well. As these opportunities were coming up, we saw a lot of issues around folks accessing these opportunities because of capacity. I know it's exciting to hear about, the digital currency and advances, but we can't forget that there's people attached to these businesses in the end that sometimes don't have the capacity or get left behind on understanding and how to access some of this information. So part of it is a collective from the discussions that have happened before, we're addressing the digital divide, providing technical assistance, and making sure information is readily available to everybody in order so that they have access to these resources simultaneously. So a lot of it is going to happen in the space where those in the audience, our municipal partners, directly engage with us, with the counties, the cities, the states, the feds, and our partners, to ensure that we're all aware of what each of us is doing, not necessarily stepping in on each other, stepping back in those areas where they're better suited to lead, but making sure that there's a collective repository of this information, and all of us have access to it, so that we could connect our folks to that information through technical assistance, or just pointing them in the right direction to access that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Raphael, you know, the county is already helping to lead in this area in terms of really focusing in on One LA and creating the kind of portal that, as these kind of ephemeral events come to our region, I mean, everybody wants to be in LA, right? We've got, you know, great weather, great facilities, great people, and a great atmosphere. And so it's exciting to see all that. And I know the county, along with some foundation and corporate sponsors, have really been focused on putting together that portal. I would also say, sitting on the NFL's Connectory Advisory myself, I really want to encourage us to try and help those other events that are coming our way to really take a page out of the NFL, in the sense that not only are they looking at creating a centralized and more democratized way of letting diverse entrepreneurs know about opportunity, but they are also taking the next step and saying, hey, let's get you ready. Let's make sure on the other end that we're putting in the technical assistance support so that you can be successful in being able to get these contracts. So to the extent that we can get, you know, soccer and baseball, and even as the Olympics comes to Los Angeles, really focus in on that technical assistance aspect, then we start to create that pipeline of businesses that we know are out there, entrepreneurs who we know can do this work, but we tighten things up so that they're ready, and can successfully compete for the opportunities that come this way.
And just to build on that too, thanks to Noah, is that's the whole intent of our utilization program and our certification programs, is to get our small businesses connected to opportunities that help them build the capacity to be able to access these larger opportunities. And I think that's an opportunity we have in working with our municipal partners. You know, for some businesses, a $5,000 contract with a small city could be a big leap forward in learning how to live in this ecosystem and take advantage of the services. And then that could be a stepping stone into a county contract, into a larger city contract, and then eventually into some of these other opportunities. But as far as the technical assistance on the procurement side, it becomes difficult for small businesses who are their own HR, their own accountant, their own risk managers, trying to manage all of this, if they're not provided an opportunity to address it. Our investment in our partnership in One LA has been a deposit in moving towards that direction. In an ideal world, you know, we have this alphabet soup of certification programs amongst different cities, different municipalities at the state level, at the federal level. In an ideal world, we would have an ecosystem where getting certified with one, you get certified all the way across. And if we're talking about technology, having a portal where you exist as an entity, AI could connect you to opportunities that pop up as we upload them and submit them into the system, reducing some of the impact and some of the burden of a business owner to sit there and have to physically manually search or just hear about opportunities because of who they know or who they have access to. So there's some solutions, some creative solutions, and I know here at the county there's some commitment to move in that direction, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some movement very soon from our Board of Supervisors in that direction, in particular because there is a recognition that procurement is an equitable and reasonable and achievable opportunity to reinvest in our communities and open up opportunities for some of these small businesses.
And I'd like to chime in too on the level of, I think there's three ways I would think about this next wave of huge visibility for the city and activity around being more of what we've been for many decades now, which is, the first is how well can we design these systems so that they are less complicated to work with, meaning, on the procurement side, your teams there in the cities, on the actual business owner side, and for frankly the public to have visibility to see what's going on, right? We need people to understand that this is actually possible and that they can have access to it. So the design function at the center of that, how well can we actually make this human centered, is a key component that I think will help elevate us above some of the things that have been done in the past that maybe weren't as successful as they could have been. The second category is around the actual, let's call it the infrastructure, right? Of having a smart mesh that actually connects these different venues that we have, that actually connects the sustainability factors and how things are being properly traced. There's some really smart systems that I think we can apply here in a very revolutionary way. And again, tell that story and show how that's evolving and build them in a way that, again, the residents actually have equity within them. This is where I think it's going to get really interesting with things like blockchain, and we can actually have economics woven into these systems. And the third category is around the competition factor, right? We're seeing cities like Miami doing what they're doing. I mean, it's been fascinating to see what Mayor Suarez is doing in terms of opening things up around the innovation economy and the hub that he wants to create there. We need to do the same thing for ourselves here, based on the fact that we have all these great opportunities that are rightly being located here, but we shouldn't take it for granted that LA is not going to be competed against. But we see the drain going to Austin. We see the drain going to these other cities where people want to be able to work remotely or access content remotely. But there should be something really special around how we create the realities as well as the depictions of what we are and what our future is going to be.
Thank you, Lemaire. And I'm going to switch my hat a little bit as well. I think, where's my, here it is. Besides LAEDC, we also, as a wholly owned subsidiary, sorry, Tanua, can you hear me better now? Sorry, my mic is off. Besides LAEDC, we also operate a wholly owned subsidiary, the World Trade Center Los Angeles, where we work with international community members that are looking to invest in Los Angeles. And to be honest with you, last year, it's been a bit quiet. International trade has slowed down quite a bit. But in recent months, folks are coming back online. Yesterday, we were hosting a delegation from the Netherlands looking at circular economy. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking to a Danish delegation. A lot of folks are looking in Los Angeles. However, Lemaire, to your point, they're not just looking at Los Angeles. They're looking at Phoenix. They're looking at Salt Lake City. They're looking at Austin. They're looking at Miami. And so a lot of competition that's there. As we're coming in, I want to bring back to Tanua what you mentioned before, where for NFL, it will be great as these opportunities are coming in to provide the capacity building for our local companies so they don't miss out on these opportunities. So with that said, I want to go back to, we don't have a lot of time, but I want to go back to one key aspect of the 3 Ps, the play space again. We kind of talked in general in terms of the opportunities that are available, and also providing them with technical assistance and support. Are there any advice that you would give our partners here that are looking from a municipal standpoint, knowing the data that we know now, knowing that the economic impact is not spread equally, and when PPP was available, certain regions were able to apply for it a lot quicker and certain regions were not, knowing that we're going to be going into this recovery mode without a level playing field? What can we do to really help, Raphael, to your point, the women of color entrepreneurs who we knew were devastated by COVID-19? What can we do?
Did you want me to start with that one?
Please.
You had so much in there, Stephen, so I'm going to try and, get to all of it. I did want to speak to this component because the work that we do is so intertwined with really making sure that we house those who don't have housing. And I think, and I have to mention that in the context of, as we think about in this world, you can be anywhere. Companies can choose to really locate anywhere, and potentially because of the pandemic, we also know they can source employees from around the world. So where they are, there's got to be a compelling reason as to where they are. And one of the things that we've got to solve as a region, because one of our greatest assets is the diversity of people and places and food and experience here, but you don't get to experience that if you're constantly stepping over people who are in the streets because they don't have anywhere to live. And so we've got to tackle that issue in order to remain a world-class place where we can attract the kind of investment that we need and deserve in our region. So that I want to make sure is there, because that's part of that equitable recovery. And then the specifics regarding place. One of the first things you got to do is identify where are those commercial corridors in your cities where you knew well before the pandemic have been left behind by the current economic structure. Let's identify where those are. Now you know where those are. Let's figure out what are the indigenous resources that are there. Who are the local champions that have already been in those places, already care about those places and are doing something, but need the next thing, resources from you. So they need the resources to be able to have the staffing, the infrastructure. And then from there, they need the kind of training so that they can start to create and develop a place strategy. So, making sure that they've got access to the ability to create databases so that customers of those businesses and potential customers are an audience that they're speaking to on a regular basis, that these organizations and or institutions have access to best practices around creating events and enthusiasm for their commercial corridor. And to the extent that we are interested and open to providing grants to small businesses, let's figure out how we make sure that we, put those grants in such a way that now instead of having, 10 empty storefronts, you've got 2 empty storefronts because you've been able to attract strong small businesses and help them be in that place with those grants for a period of time, and thereby also continuing that momentum of really creating some enthusiasm for that place. So those are some of the things that I think that we would want to be able to do. And then we want to connect it very critically to the procurement. Are any of those businesses in those places that are hardest hit, can they be the kinds of businesses that get access to the contracting opportunities that your city is offering? And as the mayor loves with the portal as well, can you make sure that they're that those small businesses, every single one of them is connected online in some way, that they're easily found by people who are nearby and far away, and that they are able to conduct trade via that online portal.
Oh, that was well said, Tanua. And just to build on that, I mean, when we looked at our COVID recovery fund, we did see the importance of the role that our nonprofits and our chambers of commerce and our business associations played in ensuring that those places continue to thrive and exist, and that they have the capacity to continue and be resilient. So as we start looking at what our recovery looks like, that's one of the things that we're looking to invest in and make sure that the capacity exists to support those businesses there. So there's an opportunity there to partner with our local municipalities. It will take more grants. It will take direct investments into those corridors, facade improvements, creation of space, and making people feel safe to come back and return to those spaces. We saw a good article in the LA Times around East LA and what's happening in the Whittier corridor, and folks just not feeling safe enough to come back. And I think the more we become digital dependent, we have to make sure that we don't become overly reliant on that digital dependency, because what ends up happening is a lot of times is some of the investments that come into that community, some of the dollars that roll into that community get sucked out to wherever some of this digital presence already exists, right? You could have a business that exists in Utah and drawing resources out of East LA or Lancaster, and then those dollars don't get circulated in there. So we have to make sure that we find an equal balance to make sure that there's incentives for people to go to these places, feel safe, and then also support them in other ways.
Yeah, really, really great point, Raphael. And I think the thing that I would say is as much as possible to kind of create the culture of incubation and innovation in regards to your city's kind of areas of activity, right? So there might be certain topics around green energy, for instance, that some of your cities are really focused on. What an incredibly powerful sector to have here in LA, and to promote it as well as to fuel it with any number of resources and or just visibility, I think would be the way to really think about the place factor, because we have such tremendous talent pools here that are coming from afar and relocating to call this home. They're often doing that kind of delicate dance that Raphael just mentioned. And when they do, we should also have some sort of sense of infrastructure to help them do that in such a way that it doesn't dilute what they're doing here in the city. And I think this, again, where a lot of the technological solutions that we're going to see come to life here and this year are going to help us, but also hybridize that with real world engagements where people are actually able to get together. So maybe you're designing hackathons or whatever it might be for the community to kind of come together and to see what's going on and to work together on the different initiatives that they have going from the entrepreneurial side of things. And lastly, I just think that the innovation we're going to see in this next couple of years, this is the Pollyanna side of me, but I think it's going to be as explosive as the 20s were in the 1900s. We're all pent up and we've got all these different ideas and books we've been reading. And I think you guys have an opportunity to kind of really foster a lot of that innovation right here in LA in ways that no other cities could.
Thank you, Lemaire. And we're running out of time, so I want to thank our panelists and our speakers. This 88 City Summit, we've learned quite a lot. I've changed all my notes. I had a closing statement that I'm tossing out. I'm going to just go off the notes I have here. One of the things that we would like to do is turn this into not just a yearly summit, but a call to action in many ways. With this panel, with Tanua, Raphael, and Lemaire, there are so many resources. I'm going to put them on the spot right now and ask them to continue to participate with LAEDC so we can offer these technical solutions that you guys have to the cities. What we'll do is we'll follow with the various cities that have participated today to offer up various kind of training and workshops and resource workshops so that you guys can continue to have direct access to these great resources so we can share our best practices and we're not duplicating efforts, and we can make it easier for our businesses to reopen, but reopen in a more effective manner and also inclusive and equitable manner as well. So with that, I have the duty of actually closing out the entire summit right here, but I want to first thank Tanua, Raphael, and Lemaire for your great input and your feedback, and also for your great work and leadership to help this region during our most dire time. I think the reports that we've been talking about and some of those challenges we see, really previously have been quite pessimistic from my perspective. But this panel actually has opened my eyes back up again to the positivity in terms of what we can do. Yes, there are challenges that we face, but we can overcome this together. And so with that, I'm gonna close out by thanking all the panelists, not only on this panel, but our previous panel, Bill Kehoe, Scott Longhurst, Jackie Baccarat, Mark Powell, Jane Oates, Otto Solorzano, Mariana Holiday, Amber Mishak, and of course our leader, Bill Allen, Jessica Koo Kim, and the entire LAEDC team for hosting this event. I also want to thank our sponsors for allowing and making this happen. This conversation is so important every single year to bring in our communities together. And I'll just say that, again, from an international perspective, and I think Mariana said this before, the world is looking at LA, but they're also looking to LA for our leadership and for our innovation in terms of what's going to happen next. And Tanua mentioned this, one of our greatest assets is our diversity. And the world is looking at how we're going to handle the challenges that's in front of us. And I think we have a lot of great opportunities. But throughout the panel, we've heard over and over again, we have to collaborate. We have to work closely together. And this gives us an opportunity. A lot of our international partners, when they come here, they don't know the difference between the various cities. To be honest with you, I always have to explain to them, what's the difference between Hollywood, West Hollywood, North Hollywood? Is there a South Hollywood? Which one is the neighborhood? Which one's the city? How do I get my permits? So these are the challenges that we face as a region, that the international community and folks around the world, they don't know the difference. To them, it's just basically Los Angeles and the greater Los Angeles region. And we have this great power. Our GDP previously was the 19th largest economy in the world. We're not a city, we're not a county, we are a mini nation in many ways. We have the power behind it. As we're mentioning, all these great opportunities, including the sports entertainment capital of the world. We have our tech sector growing. We have our bioscience sector growing. We have our sustainability sector growing. These are all ways for us to provide additional opportunities for our most vulnerable population the way that they weren't accessed before. We have an opportunity to make that change. I'm so glad that our cities are here to help us with and engage with us. So our call to action is please continue to engage with us, whether it's through our business technical assistance program, whether it's through our research, whether it's through our community connectory, whether it's through our Safer at Work campaign, whether it's through our workforce development program. Please continue to work with LAEDC. I want to thank all the cities that are currently active members of LAEDC that have been working with us over the past year and beyond. And also, I also want to encourage those that have not joined LAEDC as our partner, please do so. We have a lot of great program coming up. And with the last minute, I'll plug that on Monday next week, our economist and Bill will be sharing our economic briefing on a monthly basis. It will be 11 o'clock, so please sign up for that. With that, I want to thank you all. We look forward to working very closely with you on closing and eliminating the digital divide, continue to build a strong workforce so we can attract the best companies in the world to locate in Los Angeles and help our economy grow and build resiliency in a more equitable and inclusive manner. Thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you soon.